Welcome, Palladium fans, to the latest episode of the official History of Palladium Books. I'm J-M, and with me, as always, the person you're here to listen to, Kevin. Kevin, thanks for joining us. Today, we're jumping ahead to about 2000, right around 2008-ish, for the release of Dead Rain, which is another game that is sort of a unique take on a familiar set of tropes and monsters, this time being the zombie movie. But again, is another unique. Well, you've had zombies in Palladium fantasy, and you've had zombies, obviously, in Rifts. Several types of zombies: juicer zombies, psychic zombies, regular zombies. This was a game dedicated to the idea of I'm going to quote you from our notes here, kind of a Romero-esque zombie apocalypse. So how did Dead Rain, because this was not an idea that kind of sprung from your head. This was an idea that sprung from the fans of Palladium.
Yeah, I was approached by a fan who was also an excellent game master, Josh Hilden, and his friend and co-author of the project, Joshua Sanford, and they came to me and said, "Hey, we got this great idea for a zombie game," and they pointed out that there really weren't many zombie role-playing games out there. I think there were like one or two at the time.
I can think of like one, right? All Flesh Must Be Eaten.
Exactly.
The big one. And then all of the other ones are like little World of Darkness kind of one-off sort of things.
Yeah, exactly. And he had this idea to do this stuff. And he pitched me because he was a fan of Walking Dead, also the comic book, before it ever became a movie. And I had not read the comic, and I never really thought of myself as a zombie guy. But, he had this really strong pitch why a role-playing game would sell and how he had all these ideas, and he's been running this game for several years himself already. And I don't recall if we had met at the first Palladium open house or not. I want to say yes, but it was the first or second one. And he had run some games there, his zombie game there, and people seemed to really like it. So I'm like, hey, if you want to do it up on speculation, you guys can go ahead. And he was like, fantastic. So they spent the next few years, several years, I'm trying to think. I said we just met at the open house, but I think he actually came down because he was only in Ohio. I want to say he came to the Palladium offices, made an appointment, and came to the Palladium offices to pitch this before the open houses, as I think about it. And anyways, he worked on it for several years, fine-tuning it and things, and we really liked it, and we really liked him. Josh Hilden in particular was sort of like the front man. Joshua was kind of quiet. And so we had met several times, in fact, at the office, and had talked on the phone with various ideas. Like they wanted to do more. They had ideas for having like zombie baby factories where some demonic creature would have or cult would be like raising babies for like blood sacrifices and for feeding to zombies and that kind of thing. And a little too dark. But we know they pitched all kinds of different ideas, and we even took Josh to a Gen Con. So gosh, the more I think about it, he probably reached out to me in like 2000 or 1999, 98.
Oh, wow.
So anyways, we brought him to run demos of Dead Rain at the convention. And so I got to see how he ran things and what people really liked, because I'm one of those game designers where I'm always trying to produce stuff that's going to get my audience excited. This isn't like a personal fine arts project where I don't care what anyone thinks. It's my vision. It's what I love. Yeah. And, I'm looking for something that I can sell and that people will have fun with. And people went nuts over his quickie little 20-minute, 30-minute demos of the game. Plus, he ran a couple of big, longer, 3-hour, 4-hour things. And I'm like, yeah, this is going to be great. So kind of fast forward, I get the manuscript. And, prior to this, they started to lean more and more to the demonic. And I said, I don't really see that as an element that I really want in this game. I think what I really see people gravitating to is what we can now refer to as Walking Dead or Night of the Living Dead type stuff. They want to be ordinary people who are kicking zombie butt. And, protecting the innocent and whatnot. But they seemed like they were really hot on this whole demon cult thing being the cause of the zombie apocalypse, and had a lot of stuff with demons and things. And I said, look, you seem really hot on this, but I don't think that's what we want. So please don't do it. But if you do it, please write it in such a way that I can easily go through the manuscript and take it out if I don't like it, if I don't think it works.
Yeah.
And they said, okay. So I finally get the manuscript, and they really doubled down on the whole demonic thing. And like the zombies, it was hard to find the zombies. And when I finally found it, it was like 3 or 4 pages of manuscript pages, which would be like 2 pages in the final book. And I'm like, where's the stuff on zombies?
The game was pitched as a zombie game.
It's a zombie book, and he had slouchers and I think maybe one other type of zombie. And he's like, well, Kev, they're animated dead. What can you say about them? And I'm like, well, as a writer, as a game designer, that's your job to figure out what is there to say about them, what makes these guys cool and different. And, I want to say he had some really brilliant ideas. He was a big Palladium fan and was very familiar with my system and loved a lot of elements of it. So the zombie moan, his idea.
So the fact for people who may not have played Dead Rain, what is this zombie moan?
So there's a lot of really cool elements in Dead Rain, and it's why it's selling really, really good. And one of those, and this is Josh Hilden concepts. He came up with the concept that these zombies, the Dead Rain zombies, they're not after brains. They're not after flesh. I mean, actually, I have a couple that are, but generally speaking, they're not after that. They're after your PPE energy.
Yeah.
And so when a zombie sees a living, he doesn't see J-M Defoggy. He sees a glowing humanoid shape that's food.
That ties really well into the mechanics and the underpinnings of the Palladium system, because once and we talked about this before, once that coalesced, that became a major through line that solved a lot of metaphysical issues, if you will, that you were working through.
Oh, absolutely. And so, it just fits the Palladium metaverse and all the foundation of that, how magic and stuff works beautifully. So zombies see you as a glowing, walking food source. And that's also why they moan. So when a zombie sees food, it starts to moan. And all zombies know instinctively that if a zombie is moaning, it means food. And so the other zombies start to moan and shuffle off or run over, if it's a fast zombie, because we have those, to where the moan is coming from.
Yeah.
And as soon as they see the light, they run over. And I forget if this was a Josh Holden thing or if I extrapolated on it. The reason is they start to converge. So you have this convergence of zombies, which is awesome in the game because it really does create a sense of urgency and fear. Because zombies in this game, as they converge in larger and larger numbers. So if a zombie starts to moan, you want to kill it real quick and then dodge behind something and wait and hope that other zombies didn't hear them and aren't showing up.
Yeah. So
if you kill a moaning zombie or 2 or 3 fast enough, you might be okay. But if you don't, and it's tough, zombies start to, it's like a dinner bell. The moan's like a dinner bell.
Right,
Come
yeah.
and get it. And so they all start to converge. And so every melee round, I think it is, and it might be every 30 seconds, I forget. I wrote it a while ago. First there's the initial zombies, whatever. Let's say it's 1. So then there's next melee, there's 2. Next melee round, there's 4. The next melee round, there's 8 more.
Yeah.
Showing up. Then there's 16 more showing up. And then there's 32 more showing up. And you can see how that convergence creates that cinematic, oh my God, the zombies are coming. We have to get the hell out of here.
Well, and I'm a huge fan of game mechanics that, like, I've played a lot of RuneQuest. I've played a lot of games that are very simulationist, right? Where they're like, we're trying to make the rules reflect the world, which is not necessarily something Palladium is. Palladium wants the drama. They want the narrative. They want the meat of it. And so, like, that moan captures the excitement and the terror of a zombie film kind of perfectly. And I love that.
Oh, absolutely. And you could find yourself, cornered inside a house, just like a movie. It kind of automatically gives the game master a bunch of little prompts. Because, someone may say, oh my gosh, there's no way out. Can we go inside this house or inside this building? And can we shove something against the door and the windows? And it's like, yeah, sure. Just like in the movies.
Yeah, just exactly.
But that could be bad because the zombies keep coming and coming and coming. And you could be that classic house surrounded by a sea of zombies. And as long as they don't see your glow, so if you stay away from windows or can cover stuff up or hide or whatever, they'll eventually go away. But the other thing with these zombies, and I kind of took this out of Aliens. I love the idea that the aliens just kind of hibernate. Yeah. So one of the things in Dead Rain, and this is why zombies can kind of pop up anywhere. You only saw 1 or 2 zombies, and you thought you could kill them before they started to moan. But the next thing you know, there's a zombie that was hungry and couldn't find food that curled up behind the couch or under the stairs or under a blanket or under the desk or behind a curtain. And the next thing you know, it's like, shit, there's, and there's 6 of them in the damn room. And you're like, oh no. And it's funny because you always hear people talk about, and I'm sure this is true with some people in some groups and maybe in real life.
Yeah.
But I happen to have the opportunity to play test this game like crazy. And with people that I didn't know. So it's not my usual play test group. It's not friends. It's strangers at conventions. And the really beautiful thing was you always hear how people speculate, oh, well, in a zombie apocalypse, it's an old joke. I don't need to be able to outrun the zombies. I just need to be able to outrun you.
Yeah, right.
And that they're going to shoot you in the kneecap. So you're going, oh, no. And the zombies all converge on you. They make a quick getaway.
Yeah.
I found it to be the exact opposite. people who didn't know each other, players who often didn't know each other, because at a convention it's usually random. I mean, sometimes it's a group of friends, but it's usually like, Bob from Connecticut and Fred from Chicago and Kevin from Detroit. And so these people don't even really know each other. And it's like, oh no, they grabbed Fred, the NPC character, or, the one of the player characters.
Yep.
Well, I got my baseball bat. I get my shotgun. Whack, whack. No, you can't. These things are too strong. Can I chop the arm off of my machete? Well, give it a try.
Yeah.
In a couple chops, they got it. And you realize the zombies are still converted. You're like, yeah, that's why we have to do this. They wouldn't let people die.
Well, and I think that speaks to our humanity and the fact that, like, I'm not a huge fan of post-apocalyptic movies because they tend to go very dark.
Yeah, and grim.
I like pre-apocalypse movies, let's call it, where really it's about, that's where I think the success of The Walking Dead was not that it was a zombie comic book, but it focused on the interpersonal tensions of the humans left behind. By the way, I was going to ask, have you read World War Z? Because one of my favorite scenes from World War Z is where they think the zombies have gone away and the snows melt and the zombies have just been frozen under the snow. And now they're starting to wake up again because now it's warm. Now we can move around some. And that made me think of the hibernation side of the zombies.
Well, I have not read it. So like I said, we're jumping around a little bit because of the nature of the book. So, and the creation of it, the manuscript that gets turned in feels really shortchanged to me. And it feels kind of convoluted. I really feel like, because he took like 6 years to write this thing. I should say they took 6 years to write this thing. And the book I think they lost, when you're working on something that long, it's easy to lose touch with the original concept that was a gem and your audience that you're writing for. And I think that's what happened with this. So it was basically Nightbane, but instead of Night Lords, there were zombies.
Okay.
And instead of Nightbane, there were the people trying to survive.
Right. And you don't want to just rehash Nightbane with a different skin on it.
Exactly. Plus, the game I saw people love was your classic zombie game where we're fighting zombies and saving lives and trying to survive in this crazy apocalyptic world. So I knew that's what people wanted to play. So I point this out to Josh and said, look, you can do a lot of different stuff. And I said, the book's kind of, all over the place. I said, like, where's the zombie moan? He's like, oh, it's in this section on page whatever. And I'm like, oh. And I said, where's they see us as human light bulbs. He's like, oh, that's in this other section under the priest or something. And I'm like, why isn't this all under like zombie? So I said, you need to take this and rewrite it. I'll give you a bunch of notes. And I said a lot of things there. And I could tell he was very unhappy with me at that moment. And he gets back to me a short time later, or it might have even been the next day, and says, it's perfect the way it is. We're not going to rewrite it. Just pay us and do whatever you want with it. So I did. So my dilemma now is I'm not a zombie guy, or I didn't think of myself as a zombie guy. So now I have to write this book. And I think we had probably advertised it because I was always shooting my mouth off back then, going, this great product is in production. And it was like, oh, why did I say that before I got the manuscript?
Secrets were never a problem at Palladium.
No, because I revealed them all.
That's right.
And or at least 90% of them. So I had to bang this out. And I talked to numerous people. There was a guy John Cooney, who we mentioned, I think, briefly. He was the guy who wanted to do the Rift's MMO.
Mm-hmm.
And it fell through back in 2008. Well, we were friends, and he's a big zombie guy. So I called him up to get some feedback, and I got some good advice and feedback from him. And then I sat back and went, okay, let me rent. This is 2007. I'm probably writing this. So I'm like, okay, let me rent a bunch of zombie movies from Blockbuster or wherever. And plus I had a bunch because I was kind of a zombie fan, but I not on the level of like Josh Hilden, who had read everything, seen every movie known to man about zombies.
Not a subject matter expert, but you enjoy zombie films.
Right.
Yeah.
So while I didn't think of myself as a zombie guy, I guess I am. And I think that goes all the way back to Night of the Living Dead. Because, well, it's great. It's one of the, it's really the movie that sets the zombies as we know it were defined in Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, 100%.
You had other types of zombies, dead people who went, but a lot of times they were like voodoo curse zombies or a mummy that came to life or some other corpse that was brought to life through some horrific, evil ritual or something. He really defined, George Romero, and I hope he gets the credit he deserves for this. He really defined that whole genre. Yes, there's been different takes on it, and some really good ones. But he's the guy who defined the modern zombie. And oddly enough, he had a huge impact on me because I'd seen Night of the Living Dead several times. But in 1973, he was at the Detroit Triple Fanfare.
Awesome.
Which was the equivalent of today, what we think of as the various Comic Cons. Right. So you had media guests, comic book guys, other people. And one of the media guests at the Detroit Triple Fanfare was George Romero. And it was really awesome seeing him there. And I did a write-up, so I have it actually memorialized in Night Spawn, the fanzine that existed 2 decades, Todd McFarlane, before you did Spawn, with a Tom Orzechowski logo.
That's right.
Night Spawn, the fanzine, and that's the tragedy there is I was saving that name and the logo.
Yeah.
For something truly special, which is why we named Nightbane Night Spawn at first, and then, anyways,
go check out our Nightbane episode.
Hear what's going on, right? With that, but I have this great little write-up about it in Night Spawn 2, number 2. There are only 2 issues, and I talk about the interview, and and it was really cool because one of the things that Alex and I, my best friend Alex Marcinison, and I were into were comic books. And Alex was really into EC comic books.
Oh, yeah. Which is where you're going to get a lot of the horror comics from that.
Right. EC was famous for its horror comics. The most famous was Tales from the Crypt.
Of course.
But there was Tales from the Crypt, Haunt of Fear. I think there were 3 or 4 horror titles. And it was interesting because I was rereading my little interview thing with George Romero for this filming, and it talks about how there were 2 reasons he made Night of the Living Dead, or so he said back in 1973. One was mercenary intent. We wanted to prove that we could produce a low-budget film without sacrificing quality and still wield a profit. And second is that they wanted to produce a his words, not mine, nitty-gritty horror film like EC, in reference to EC Comic Books, famed horror line, without cluttering it up. So he was an EC comic book fan.
Well, there you go.
Part of his inspiration. And man, he just knocked it out of the park. And then a lot of the people who were in the film were local people, from Pittsburgh. He filmed it in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And, so we hear the whole origin story for Night of the Living Dead. It was part of my early inspiration. And here's a guy, I'm probably, what am I? I'm in 1973. I'm 20. I'm 20 years old. And I've got my own aspirations to become a comic book creator. Yeah. Of course, I'm thinking, I could love to do film as well, or this or that, and anything involving writing and creative concepts. And so it was inspiring to see this guy who came from humble beginnings in Pittsburgh, a steel town, create a movie that Hollywood said, you can't make this. And he went ahead and made it on his own on a shoestring budget. And he told us some of the tricks where like the innards were like baked pig's intestines and stuff.
It's amazing to me how many horror directors started off like that. Because Sam Raimi, the same thing with Evil Dead. That was they were just his buddies, and right. Yeah, as much money as they could put into corn syrup.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and Sam Raimi is also a local guy. He's from the Metro Detroit area.
Really?
And, yeah. Well,
I know that Evil Dead takes place in Michigan.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, because he lived in Michigan. That's where Evil Dead happens, up north, because they filmed up north in the Upper Peninsula, or at least upper northern Michigan. And in fact, I actually got to watch some filming of what was that Walter Koenig science fiction? It took place on the moon. I can't think of what it is. It's Moon something Moon.
Okay,
it's an early Sam Raimi Magic Lantern production, and I got to see Walter Koenig repeat this like simple line coming out of an elevator like 20 times. I'm like, boy, filmmaking is boring as shit.
Well, a little off topic, but kind of in the same vein, when we met for the first time at Chaosium Con 2024, the special effects special effects on Evil Dead was there, because he also did a bunch of drawings for the early Chaosium books, the color plates, and he had some fascinating stories about like why he doesn't drink coffee anymore, because they would put coffee to make the corn syrup opaque, and he would have to hold it in his mouth and blow coffee flavored corn syrup through a tube to get the blood splatter when Sam would call action. And he's like, after about 7 weeks of this just mouthful of sickening sweet, slightly coffee, he's never touched the stuff since the 70s. And I'm like,
there you go.
What we sacrifice for art.
Yeah, that was Tom Sullivan.
Yeah.
What I don't know if you got to see the actual Necronomicon.
Oh, I did. He has the 1/4 size Necronomicon prop that he made. I actually bought my son one of his prints of a night gaunt, and it's hanging up in his room because my son loves Cthulhu. And so I'm like, this is a guy who did like a lot of the original art, and not yet, maybe in a couple of years, did the Evil Dead movies, which I will show you. He could probably see Army of Darkness, because that's really not a horror movie. That's very...
there's some gore in it.
Yeah, it's a little silly movie.
Violent, but I don't know how old your son is, but...
Yeah. He's in his young teens.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so George Romero was kind of an inspiration for me, and I had always watched various zombie movies and horror movies. I always enjoyed that genre. Again, I'm not one of those fanatics who I've seen everything. I've seen the key things, The Ring and Saw and all kinds of other stuff that's come up and over the years. And so anyways, I immerse myself in zombie-ness, mostly films. I rewatched all of George Romero's films, night, day, late afternoon, evening.
That's right.
Of the Dead, all of them.
Dusk of the Dead.
And
Second Breakfast.
And a bunch of other stuff, some oddball stuff. And then I spitballed ideas to the guys here and sat down and wrote this Mama Jama. And, I kind of took Josh's comment of "They're zombies, Kev. What can you do with them?"
As a personal challenge.
Challenge, yeah. So I've got all kinds of cool different zombies. Like there's a thinker zombie, and they're not real smart, but they can know how to open up a door, or open up a window, or pick up a gun and aim it and shoot it. They can use simple tools to maybe force open a door or a window. They might recognize fresh blood on the ground. They might notice some other patterns and things. They might recognize that there's a light on in that building, and while it's not food light, it suggests that someone might be in there. Especially if that light's moving around because it's a flashlight. So that makes them dangerous. Much to my disappointment, everyone always figures out what a mock zombie is, because I thought it was a really cool character. So a mock zombie is a zombie that thinks still thinks it's alive. And so it's not pretending to be a survivor.
Yeah.
It actually, especially early in the zombie apocalypse or later ones that if you feed enough in this game, if the zombie feeds frequently enough, they stay fresh looking. So if a mock zombie looks pretty fresh, or he's got like a gash or a scar or something, but it doesn't look horrific, maybe he is a survivor. And he talks about zombies as being bad and dangerous, and he might even help you. And the thing is, because they think they're alive, to some extent, they really think, I'm one of you, JM. I'm here. Help me. I'm going to help you. Or I just saved your life. So now you got to help me. And the problem is, he still sees you as yummy, light energy. Yeah. And at some point, it's like, I'm sorry, I have to eat you now. Yeah. Actually, they don't say that. They just kind of lunge and tear out your throat, or he stabs you or shoots you, because they're got relatively human intelligence, not complete.
It reminds me of the when you put out the vampire source book for Rifts, and you added in a couple of new spins on playing vampires as heroic characters, and you have the vampire who you have both the one who is delusional and is like, I'm really just a human. I don't understand what's going on.
Right.
And then you have the heroic one that is, striving for it. Kind of this idea of you're a monster who just doesn't get it yet. And that's terrifying on several levels, especially as a good bait and switch monster character NPC in a game.
Well, most people figure out a thinker zombie is a thinker zombie, or we're not going to take chances, so we're just going to, lose this guy. We're not necessarily going to kill him because we're not sure, but we're not going to let him hang with us, and we're not going to hang with him, kind of thing. And then, the book's got great art.
So I was going to ask, who did most of the art for the book?
Nick Bradshaw. This is Amy Ashbaugh. She did some beautiful stuff. The cover, in fact, all the covers to the series so far are by E.M. Gist. And I think that's how he pronounces his name. It might be Gist. I forget. I've met several of his students. He's an amazing painter. This guy,
they're gorgeous.
Gets big bucks doing covers for all kinds of novels and things. And we have him doing stuff because he is a zombie guy. He loves horror. He loves doing zombies. Doesn't get much chance to do it. So he says, Kev, whenever you have a book coming up, give me like 6 months or a year so I can squeeze it into my schedule. But I'm your guy.
Awesome.
And he doesn't charge us his full rates, which is wonderful because we couldn't afford him. But, I don't argue. Yeah, exactly.
All right. So you said you had kind of a couple of challenges putting Dead Rain together. Give gamers the RPG that you saw that they wanted, which was the game that Josh was running at the table, which is kind of the classic zombie horror survival. We talked about that.
Yep.
But then you said you also wanted to make sure that you set it apart from other zombie games and tropes. And so we've got the PPE light. You've got some different zombie types, but what else do you feel like sets Dead Rain apart from playing All Flesh Must Be Eaten, or if there is a Walking Dead role-playing game, I'm not sure there is, or GURPS Zombies, for example?
Well, I think like Walking Dead, it really focuses on the survivors. And we have a bunch of cool, and really it's just a handful of cool character classes, like the half zombie and like the Shepherd of the Dead. But I actually love playing ordinary people, and we've got great rules in here. They're similar to the ones in Beyond the Supernatural for playing ordinary people, and that just works out so well because you pick your occupation and then you kind of build it around that, and it just feels really real. And then we got a ton of just great information. I mean, some of these books, like this, is practically a survival guide. If there's ever an apocalypse and you can't get a real survival guide, grab this book because it's got all kinds of stuff. I think the world is pretty rich. And there's a lot of cool little nuances, a lot of different zombies, and a lot of cool different elements to it. This game also points out that, because I think people lose sight of zombies because a lot of the tropes are just so well known. Mm-hmm. Is I point out in here, so one of the things in here I talk about living on rooftops and in skyscrapers in big cities. And I said, think of some of your zombie games, because I think people have trouble sometimes crafting zombie scenarios. Think of them as a dungeon crawl, except you're dungeon crawling through house after house, or through a big skyscraper, or a basement, or a military complex, or a bunch of boxcars. We have tons of tables for boxcars. We do have a book, Graveyard Earth, that gives kind of a summary of the rest of the world. Yeah, it's another great one, man.
That's just a great cover.
It is. This deals with like lunatics and one of the other really great things, and it was the idea of the co-author on this book, Taylor White, who's written a couple other things for us. There's like basically stats and descriptions for 28 disasters.
Oh, wow.
Like earthquakes and forest fire and house fires or building fire and floods and hurricanes and tornadoes and toxic spills. They're all in here. It's a great resource for any modern game. There's a ton of stuff in here. In this book and all the books are just a great resource. We have all kinds of like random search and find tables, and it's just good stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I've got to ask, is there a single origin of the zombies in Dead Rain, or do you leave that kind of mysterious, or is there like here is what people think, and there's a lot of, mystery around what caused the Dead Rain?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that because, like I said, Josh Hilden went with demons and death cults. Yeah. People wanted to bring about the end of the world, brought this on. And I'm like, yeah, but, how realistic is it? Realistic. There's nothing realistic in here. Don't try this at home. Well, try the game at home.
But, well, yeah, try the game.
But I really kind of struggled with it. In fact, it was John Cooney, and a couple other people kind of second this, where he said, "I think it'd be cool if you don't know the origins, that there's a bunch of theories, what caused it." And he goes, "Yeah, I think that would be fun, because then you never know, and is it really important that you know what caused it?" And I really liked it. I sat back and went, no, I love the idea that there's a bunch of theories, and I had demons and death cults as being one of them. Genetic experimentation gone wrong. Yeah. Pandemic type something comes out and turns people into zombies. All the nobody knows, and you'll never know because it doesn't matter. Think about it. In the real world, if we're 6 weeks into the zombie apocalypse, there's no television, there's no internet, there's no nothing. Nobody's ever going to know what caused the zombie apocalypse. You're just never going to know. And I liked that. I really liked that. And people who play the game really like it.
Well, and if a GM has a story where the origin is really important, they're not locked into one specific one. They can craft their own, take one of the theories, change it, merge a couple, and say, okay, maybe there is a way to stop it, but in doing so, it links back to the origin, and you've left it wide open for the game masters to choose for themselves.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. And that's my style of gaming and game design anyway, is to give the game master and the players a lot of freedom to take their game whatever way, whatever direction you want to go in.
Well, Kevin, any final thoughts that you'd like to say about Dead Rain before we wrap this one up?
So strangely enough, Dead Rain is a great, and I mean great, introductory role-playing game. There's no magic, there's no psionics, there's no super science. It's set in a world we all know. We can all imagine what would happen if our society collapsed. Everyone has at least a rudimentary idea of what a zombie is and what it can do. Even though we have some, strange ones, and a couple are really bizarre. It's a great beginner game because you focus on some very simple things like saving lives, protecting yourself, protecting those you care about, protecting the members of your group, scavenging for food, killing psycho bad guys because they're in there, killing the things that want to eat you. It's just a real basic fun game. In fact, at the Lions Trade Show, Sean Robertson would always use Dead Rain as like a little demo on how our rules work.
Yeah.
And it's like simply you're at a gas station and this guy comes staggering out towards you. At first you think he's drunk, but then you realize there's like half his head's missing and he's like, what are you doing? And, a lot of people jump in their car because they were just filling it up. And it's like, okay, but he's pounding on the glass. And he's like, and there's two more have come up in front of you. He's like, can I run them over? It's like, can you? Roll the dice, And, or if they're locked in combat, I want to push them or hit them or whatever. And it's like, you go through the combat really simple. And they're like,
oh, yeah.
Oh, this is great. And then it's all about role playing. It's simple combat and role playing. So it and Ninja Turtles are great introductory games.
Awesome. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for doing this. We're going to be back in 2 weeks with even more of the official history of Palladium Books. We've got outlines for a very long time, so do not worry, dear viewer. We will be back with more insider information on the history of Palladium Books.